Welcome. This is Real Talk with Casey and JoJo, episode number what?
12?
11, babe.
11? Oh, my bad. I thought 11 was the last
And
one.
today's 11/11.
We're doing episode 11 on November 11th.
Yes.
Oh, this shit about to be fire.
We're going to do it on conscious parenting. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Conscious parenting. What does that mean?
I thought I was going to ask you, what does conscious parenting even mean?
We're going to talk about something we don't know. No, actually, we do this all the time. Conscious parenting is just being really aware of how we parent. And that is something that most of society is not really aware of. And that's because of conditioning. You have to uncondition
I was going to say that.
We've been there. We used to be unconscious parents.
And we're going to have a special guest that will confirm or deny that accusation.
Yes, I cannot wait. So let's talk about that. How has your conditioning affected your style of parenting?
Yeah, so I think earlier in our parenting careers, you tend to... Is that my cue to speak up? Probably is. As you know, earlier on in our parenting career, you don't notice or realize how much of your parents' habits, sort of help me find the words I'm looking for. Their habits influence how you parent your kids.
Their identity.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that we tend to rinse, wash, and repeat what our parents taught us as children, how they disciplined us. I think we carry those fears, those inadequacies over into our parenting styles with our children.
And not that we do that on purpose at all. It's
sure.
unconscious.
It's a lack of awareness. I think on the parent, and then as the kids get older, I think that you start to kind of see, oh my God, that's the same thing my dad used to say to me, or that's the same thing my mom used to say to me. And then you start to kind of realize, I'm basically just repeating what my parents taught me as a child. And, that could be a good or bad thing, right? Depending upon your parents and how well or not well.
Yeah.
I don't know, that they raised you. So, conscious parenting, I think, is the first step is being aware of the programming that your parents kind of instilled in you. And then, kind of step two is being aware of how it affects your kids. And because, like our kids are way different than we are in terms of they're different people. They need to be treated differently. And that in itself takes a lot of awareness and consciousness.
So how do we become aware from the first step?
In terms of previous parenting styles?
Right. How does someone become aware? How does someone go, okay, well, how do I shift from becoming unconsciously parenting to consciously parenting? How do they shift from becoming aware of what it was that these conditions or this programming and did to them? And that is by becoming aware of our own emotions and our own thoughts and why we do what we do. Because the moment we start asking ourselves why we do what we do, then you start really questioning whether it comes from you or whether it comes from your parents.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of like healing when it comes to figuring out where it comes from.
For sure. And I think that, Joanna and I used to talk about this a lot, kind of in our unaware days of parenting, is that, I think that as parents, when you start to see your flaws in your kids that mirror your own flaws, it becomes very hard to not be angry, not be frustrated, not to take things to a higher emotional level, because there's sort of a unspoken guilt, right? There's an unspoken failure that I think you feel as a parent when you see your children making the same mistakes or mirroring the same issues that you may have. And it's a tough pill to swallow, right?
So we basically become we start blocking it. We get in the state of denial. And then that's when the programming sets in and we just automatically say what our parents said. And we don't think about why it's triggering us that the kids are doing what they're doing. And it was funny because we have this huge mirror behind us in the dining room, and the way we sit, it's like we sit like this, and then the kids sit in front of us, and the mirror is right behind them. So we're kind of looking at them, but we're also looking in the mirror. And we sit there sometimes and we watch them, we observe them and how they act together. And it's a complete mirror of how we act. And a lot of times we just sit there and observe. And then it's that observation that we start realizing, okay, I see that in me. I see that in you, and then what do we do? Do we want to continue them going down this, path, or do we want them to be who they truly came here to be? And that's something that they need to figure out on their own. But most parents try to control that aspect of, you're here for this, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. They kind of shape them and don't allow them to shape their own selves. And then we spend all this time undoing what we've been taught or what we've been told to do, and then trying to figure out who the hell we really are,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
really we are the person that we were when we were a child, before all the conditioning and society's programs came at us.
Yeah, and I think that, as our kids grow, I mean, again, we're at 14 and 16 in our journey where we're at with our kids. So, there's obviously still more to go in our parenting sort of knowledge and experience. But based on, what we've personally experienced so far, there's a time in your kids' lives, depending on, where your kids are, where they sort of become, I guess, self-aware in the sense that they want to do things the way they want to do it.
Right.
They're not willing to accept your direction any longer, and you then have to start kind of working with them instead of just simply go to your room. You're being punished. I
We
mean,
have to
that
surrender, and because they're here to
right.
teach us something.
And I think that, I can go back in my own life and think about when that kind of happened with my parents. And I think the knee jerk reaction is for parents to go, kind of man up. Moms and dads, I mean, they kind of take this position of power and influence over their children instead of sort of starting to let go and become their guides, right? Because there's a point in your relationship with your kids where, you have to start advising them. You teach them and you try to model behavior up until a certain age, and I think that age varies with everyone.
Yeah, it depends on their level of understanding as well.
Right, but there's a point in time where, you just stop becoming a parent in the traditional sense, meaning the structure of power like government. You stop being the president and you start becoming their advisor. And I feel like if you don't take that step, that's when you get the rebellion. That's when you get the kids running away from home. That's when you get the depression. You get all these.
They don't communicate. They
Right,
lie. They hide
right.
things from
And
you.
they do that because they can't talk to you, because they know that if they tell you the truth, that you're going to punish them, that you're going to get mad, get angry, all these things. And like for us, we try super hard. And sometimes it's very difficult, but if you're fostering a trusting relationship with your children, and I'm talking about like 13, 14, 15, 16, that range, um, you have to be willing to accept the information. But in accepting that information, there's a lot of self-criticism, right? Of you as a parent. You're like, oh shit, like what have I done? Look at the things I've done that's messed up my child's like emotional security and all these things, right? But there comes a time where you sort of have to accept the fact that you've made mistakes as a parent, and that's okay, right? We none of
And
us
then
knew
just
what the
fix
hell to
it.
do,
Right. Just
right?
fix it.
But you have to start becoming their guide, and that doesn't mean becoming their friend. um there's a lot of Instagram posts that I see that say, oh, the problem with the world today is that parents are not parents, they're their kids friends. And that's not the case, right? Being your child's guide is not being their friend. You still say no as a parent, but you're guiding them.
Okay. So I think this is a really good time to bring on our special guest to kind of give an example of what that is, right? Like maybe some examples of what that looks like, right? In real time. You ready?
Well, before we do that, I want to give an example with him that happened, and I remember it clearly. There was something happened in the grocery store, and I grabbed him by his arm, and he basically yanked back at me and looked at me, and he was like, "Don't do that." And I was like, "Oh shit! Oh shit!"
Making you aware that
Yeah, like
physical, what's it called? doing it in a physical way isn't the right way, isn't the way
Right.
to get
Like
his
you can't
attention.
do that anymore, man. We're past that.
Yeah,
Do you remember
yeah,
that? Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So
cool.
let's bring him on. Everybody meet Isaac Crowder.
Yeah.
You. You fit?
Yeah.
What's up, Shorty?
What's up?
Hello.
All right. So can you give us an example of like parenting, like maybe what other parents do versus what we do, and how you look at it, you know?
Oh God. I guess other parents, they tend to not let their child, branch off and make their own decisions. They
Mhm.
try to force the child to make the decisions they want,
Right.
and instead you have to sort of like what we were talking about at Publix when you
Oh, release control, but it was what you
yeah
learned about the white light in the back of the
yeah
car. Okay,
so
explain that.
just getting the kid to be able to make their own decisions and teach them how to make the right decisions, and instead of saying what's right or wrong, mainly just saying
So give an example of the backing up of the car.
oh, so yeah. So one thing I just remember is when you told me that when the light is on the tail lights that the car's reversing. So so I feel like most parents instead don't tell them that. They'll just hold their arm. I see that a lot. That they'll just grab them and make them, not cross. Instead, you didn't do that. You just told me why. And then I was able to make the decision. Okay, so the car's about to reverse. I should probably not, continue walking.
Yeah,
And
right. And can you slide that this way? I want to say something real quick.
Oh,
Yeah, and I think that sorry, dude. That's a perfect example of, as a parent, if you only yank your child back. So in other words, you see that a car's cranked, right? You see that the brake lights are depressed, and you simply yank the child back. There's no concern that the car is going to back up. Why? Because it's not in reverse. The lights aren't on. So you have nothing to fear as a
right.
parent, right? You're immediately, by pulling their arm,
Living
you're,
in fear.
you're living in fear, and you're sort of subconsciously transferring that message to your child instead of giving them the information that they need to process the situation, which is no lights, no white light, no reverse. I'm good. Keep walking. I don't need to be concerned. The minute those lights turn on, I either need to get my ass out of the way or tap on the hood or something and let somebody know I'm behind them, right?
Mhm. So that translated into overall,
um,
like
yeah,
a way for you to learn in life. So I think that we've been that way, right? As
yeah,
far as
just
parenting.
teaching the child to make decisions for themselves and good decisions for themselves instead of trying to force decisions, because that I feel like that doesn't lead anywhere good.
For example, you know what I think about? I think about that one time that you came and told us that you were planning on going on the roof of the school. Like this is back in middle school.
Yeah.
And so we talked it over. We talked it over, and I asked you, okay, what are your plans? How are you going to do this? What happens if you get caught? Have you thought about that? And I let him explain it to me. And then what happened?
I don't even think
You
I
didn't
didn't
do
even
it.
do it.
You didn't do it. So
Yeah.
it's talking through it that you realize, okay, they can make their own decisions, but you have to get them to try to, you have to ask those questions. What's going to happen? Have you thought about that? That's that guiding that we're talking about. It's really having a conversation and being a guide and knowing, okay, well, if you do decide to do that, I'll be here, right? Like we'll be here regardless. But what are the consequences that you think might come about from that? Have you thought about the consequences? And then let him start thinking about it. We stifle our kids from thinking.
Yeah, and two,
We need another mic.
yeah, right. Another good example, and I'm curious to see what Isaac has to say about this, is that when Isaac hated school, could not stand school, right? And I remember having conversations with him, in younger grades, like sixth, seventh grade. He's in 10th grade now, about you have to get good grades. If you don't get good grades, then there's a problem, and that's your job, and you have to excel in your job, and all this bullshit. And he held a lot of resentment towards me for that, because he felt like I was judging him, and I'm speaking on his own behalf. But yeah, talk a little bit about that and how that made you feel.
It just made me feel very like I wasn't able to, like, you doubted me for my beliefs,
Mm.
even though I very much thought my beliefs were true, and I feel like they sort of are. And
About
that
yourself,
was
beliefs
yeah,
about yourself.
beliefs about myself, and that school was just not necessary for me, and I just wouldn't work for me. And I feel like that's where your programming was really kicking in.
Yeah, and two, like as a parent, I think I'm doing the right thing, right? Like I think that it's our kids have to get good grades, because if they don't get good grades, they can't go to college, and they can't go to college, they won't get a good job. And if they don't have a job, they can't have a family, they won't be happy. What's
What
going to
about
happen?
their future? Right. And what is that? That's the what if. What if about something in the future that may or may not happen? We go to school our entire lives to do one thing. We end up not doing it. It ends up not working. You end up getting fired, and then you're back in square zero or square one. So what does that have to do with all the years that you spent towards that one thing? And so not everyone is the same. Not everyone is what is that thing? Not everybody's a monkey that can climb a tree. Some are fish and they need to swim.
Yeah.
And you can't force a fish to climb a tree. And so we took him out of school, and he walked out like peace. And you've been unschooling ever since. And how much did you learn, or have you learned since you left school? I mean,
A lot more. I wasn't learning anything at school in the first place, or at least anything beneficial to actually, succeeding in life. At least I feel like.
now
And
you've read more books than ever.
yeah, I wouldn't read a book ever, like ever. And now I've read, I think, probably more books since I've been out of school, which has been what,
I have no
2
idea.
years,
3 years.
3, and the other, like, what, 6 years I was at school. I didn't read a single book. So
That's a huge improvement.
Oh, public school system.
I guess this is sort of off topic. This is more about school in general, but I feel like school doesn't really teach you to learn for yourself. And here's a part with parenting that I'll get back to. But I see a lot of the times with other kids that their parents will be the one forcing them to get good grades and stuff like that, to where I feel like half of the class, I don't feel like half of the class, but half of the class was getting answers from other people, from the kids that were actually doing the work. And instead it sort of teaches them to not really do the work.
Right.
Instead, it's easier if I just get the answers from this kid. So then they get a good grade, and then
And
their
you'd rather not
parents
do
see
that because
I just rather not try, because I'm not really benefiting from it. I'm just copying someone else's work,
which is honorable. I mean, that's an honorable thing to do.
You stole my word.
It's honorable.
So I had two things to say. One is
And
honor.
don't forget what you're going to say.
One is honor, right? Honor. There's no honor in that. You're not learning a damn thing. You're just checking a box just to check a box. But two, the other question that I have for you is, Isaac, is how didn't you feel like the love and acceptance, specifically for me, because it was more me that sort of did that than Joanna, but
I was like, leave this,
like whatever. But didn't you feel like that, like my love and sort of me accepting you as a person, as I don't know, well, you understand what I'm saying, like my acceptance of you was dependent upon your performance in school, and kind of talk more about how that made you feel.
Yeah, because that was a big conditioning. That was stuff we had to like talk to you through. Me and him would both be like, this is a conditioned program. You need to understand that. It took you a while, but you got it.
So would you say how I feel about?
So like how you felt when I would put like me accepting of you based on how you performed in school, right? Like did you feel like my love was based upon how well you did in school?
Maybe not love, but how much
No, it's
you
fine. You guys
appreciated me, I guess.
Okay.
I felt like you didn't really appreciate me, like I was sort of disappointing you. And I feel like a lot of parents put you're representing me as a person thing.
Said it.
And I feel like that's not the case, or not something you should do, because if you put that weight on them that they're representing you when they're not you, they're a different person that
Yeah.
has different wants and passions in life.
And maybe you're just upset because he's following his passions and you're not.
Truth. Well, and two specific example from that is
Does it matter?
at the time when kind of Isaac was getting out of school, there was a couple of friends that I had specifically specifically at the CrossFit gym, and they knew, for example, him, and he had briefly talked to one of their daughters in terms of like boyfriend girlfriend. I don't know if you call it that, but whatever. So anyway, so like she knew things that were going on. Like she would ask me, how's Isaac doing? I heard this happened at school, and my own insecurities then sort of crept in, and I'm like, and I come home to him and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? You're embarrassing me, bro. And oh my God, like what a mistake. Like, but that's my own issue as a parent. That's my own issue with feeling like I failed as a parent. And a lot of this stuff translates into relationships too, like with your spouse. It's no different. I looked at him as if something was wrong with him, instead of taking a step back, dropping my insecurities, and really taking a long, hard look and listening to where he's coming from and understanding where he's coming from, not just simply ruling from that top down perspective.
And a lot of that is because people think that you're not going to find your true passion. And I mean, with the way that we've raised you, or that I've, with the way we've been doing it, is follow your passion, do what you love. And if school is not that, and you have found another passion that is a different route or different type of schooling or different type of something, that doesn't mean he has to fit inside this one box that everybody else is supposed to fit in. Like, he found his passion in usually our passions are given to us since the beginning of time when we're little, and then it takes us our whole lives to figure out what they are, which are what they were in the first place. So he already found his passion. I'm going to fuel that. I'm going to fuel his passion until he either realizes that that's not for him or that it is for him. And then he got started at an early age, which we all, really desire that in life, is to really find our passions at an early age.
And one thing about the whole passion thing is, when I left school, I thought I knew what my passion was. And it's the passion I had when I left school is still sort of there. It's just not as much. And
but leaving school has allowed you to follow your passion.
So when you're at school, that's your whole day. So the second you get out of it, you want to do nothing in relation to learning or whatever, because you felt like you did that the whole day. So it's sort of a false sense of knowledge that you get from school. And when you're not in school, or I guess when every kid, goes to school, graduates, and then they have that period in time before college or before they want to do whatever they want to do, where they really have to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And me leaving school has allowed that to happen and really find what it was that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. And
that just wouldn't have happened if I didn't have that big distraction in the way. And everyone is going to eventually lead to that point where they have nothing to do and they don't know where to go. And allowing your kid to, I guess, have that period of time where they figure it out,
to fall, so that they can learn how to get up from that, right? Like I'm not going to say I want you to fall. I don't, but you're going to fall.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable, right? Kids are going to start crawling, then they're going to start walking, and they're going to fall. If you are always picking them up, they're never going to learn how to pick themselves up. They're going to just fall and they're going to start crying, waiting for you to pick them up. So you're enabling them, and you're giving them this false sense of, I'm your rescuer and I'm going to come rescue you. No, you're going to rescue yourself, and I'll be here when you need me. And that's really what conscious parenting is about. It's about letting them make their own mistakes early on, because I'd rather him make the mistakes early while I'm here, while I'm able to guide him, than have to later, push it down the road. And then later on he makes those mistakes and now it's too late, So I'm all about, hey, make your mistakes. I'm here if you need me. Right.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Okay.
All right. So
Microphone.
so I feel like parents are more of teachers,
Yeah.
and teachers should teach, not enforce, rules or beliefs, I
Mhm.
guess. Instead, teach about their beliefs and rules and what they think and why they think it's important. So then, yeah, the kid can make an educated decision based off of that.
And what is that called? Discernment.
Uh,
Discernment. Like you teach them how to have discernment for themselves.
Well, too, and I mean, speak to this. Like when you, from your experience, you can see through a parent's bullshit, right? Like, so in other words, I mean, when we're thinking we're being the big bad good parent, and you're doing all the right things and checking all the boxes, there's a chance is your kid's like rolling his eyes behind the scenes and going, really, dude? Like, so in other words, I mean, talk a little bit about that and from your experience, and also, you know parents have to walk the walk. You can't talk, you can't do as I say and then not as I do, right? As a
Yeah.
parent, you have to be very, if you're gonna do put these things upon your kids and demands and all these things and judgments, right? Role model, thank you. You better be doing the same thing too. So kind of touch base on that a little bit, because I know you
So
probably have something to say.
have we been role models, or have we not, or both?
Um,
Have you learned from us?
now you guys are role models.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit further back, you guys were more
Examples of
a-
what you should
yeah,
not do.
yeah, exactly. So
But you could see through it, right? You
Yeah.
could see through the BS. And I
Yeah.
mean, and how did
and
that
like
make
your
you feel?
programming,
Yeah. And how did that make
Yeah.
you feel?
um,
Frustrated?
yeah, that what I have to say or what I have to think isn't valued because I'm the kid. So then oh, I'm the parent, even though your parent stuff or beliefs is off programs. And if I can see that and you guys can't see that and you guys don't take the time to listen to me, then
Why should
you'll
you
never figure
listen?
it out.
Right.
Right. And that's incredibly frustrating, right? Yeah.
But it's so enlightening, like for everyone to understand that, right? Oh, I guess that's your cue. So I think that overall, if we allow, like, let's look at it this way: there's the child, there's the parent, there's the grandparent. We all have certain roles. Yeah, you can come back in. We all have certain roles. And if we allow the child to be the child, and the parent to be the parent, and the grandparent to be the grandparent, that means that we should allow them to be who they are. And they all serve a purpose. So we should listen to all of them equally. Like, what do you have to say? Oh, what do you have to say? And then make your own decision. That we are all equal, and we're not above, because one day, guess what? Well, he's already above me, but one day, like, we're going to grow old and we're going to be under him, and at that point, do you want it to be under, or do you want it to still have that equalness?
Yeah, and to that, thank you. That reminded me of something that I think, conscious parenting is one of those things where, we've all been in that situation as adults, to where we kind of step away from our parents. And I think that's because we're just sick of the bullshit, and the rules, the expectations, the
Judgment.
quid pro quo love barrier that's established, never spoken, but it's there, right? Unspoken. And so, we kind of go away from our parents, but then we come back. And that's such an unnecessary step, right? Like the conversations that we've had, Joanna and Isaac and I, is that, there was a lot of things that happened in Isaac and I's relationship that happened with my dad and I, but at a much later period in life. So in other words, at 23, 24, 25, 22, somewhere in that range, is when I fought a lot with my dad. It was right around the time we first got married, really since we met. But anyway, that's another story for another time. But I always told myself, I'm like, I told Isaac the same thing. It's like, look, dude, I don't want to fight with you as an adult, like when you're an adult, you know what I mean? Because if I don't fix the programming that I was taught with him and sort of allow him to see things from a higher conscious perspective, he's going to carry that over to his relationships with his spouse. He's going to carry that over to his relationships with my kids. Meanwhile, I'm over here as the grandparent seeing all this shit unfold, probably feeling guilty. I had this conversation with my mom yesterday about some of the things that, we did as parents, when if I can take a step back, fix myself, see the programming, treat my child as an equal, still the parent in an authoritative state, but not authoritative in the sense that you have to do this, you have to do this. I value his opinion. He listens to me. What's that going to do for his relationships in the future? And how much more powerful is that for his kids and his grandkids, right?
So another thing, I feel like that there's a big statement from parents that, that you're acting like a child or something. You're not mature. You need to like be more mature.
But yet they are.
And they don't treat their kid like an adult,
Yes.
but
Yeah,
expect them to be one.
Right. How can you expect a child to act like an adult if you don't treat them as such?
Yeah.
That was beautifully stated, man.
As you can see, we have raised a really intellectual young man. I think overall, though, if we just allow, the word is allow, because when you allow, that means you're in surrender, which means you're in a place of observation. And when you're in a place of observation, you're allowing information to come to you, whether that's, they're acting a certain way and you sit there and observe, and then you allow the message of, oh, I act that way too, and maybe I need to stop acting that way, because now they're doing it. They're showing you all the things that you yourself need to fix. So like judgment, for example, if we're judging them, it's really that we're judging ourselves, and we're seeing it we're seeing it in them. And so conscious parenting is just becoming really aware of how you parent, because it's not the way that the traditional system has said to be, which is kind of brainwashed in society as far as like public schools and TV and entertainment. It's always this one person on top, the rest have to listen, and that's just not how you build a coherent type of state of flowing energy. Like we flow so good together when we're equal.
Yeah, and it's really cool because and please tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if he was going to do something, and I don't know what that something is, but pick a something, take the car out in the middle of the night and not tell us, right? Sneak out in the middle of the night, go to his girlfriend's house, I don't know, do drugs, whatever. Like we don't worry about those things. Homeboy has a room above our garage where he could sneak out all he wants, but because of sort of how we've changed our parenting style, and we have an open conversation, I mean, I feel like he would come to us and go, hey, and the same thing with Isabella too, is, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is what this is what I'll do, this is that. But because we give him the freedom to do these things, it's like there's not an urge to lash out, there's not an urge to act out,
To rebel,
right? There's not an urge to do any of those things.
I have a thing onto that.
All right, cool.
So by like parents respecting the child, because a lot of times when there's someone above and you're in that lower, I guess, place, and you feel like you have to listen to them and do everything they say, when you have the opportunity to go against it, you want to do it even more, because it like
Guilty.
Because you just want to do everything in your power to get back, I guess, sort of in a resentment
you
way.
have to also explore. So when are you gonna ever explore and learn?
Yeah, and when you give the child, I guess, the respect that they at least want, they end up respecting the parent and not going again. Because there's times when I guess when I would sneak out, right? And now I just don't, because I feel like I'm disrespecting you, or it'd be against what you would want, and I feel bad, instead of when before I wanted to, because it would piss you off.
But did we respond back when you used to sneak out, did we respond the way you thought we would respond? Like, did you think we would be angry and then we would be angry, or would we be cool about it? I remember getting the doorbell ringing in the middle of the night, and I opened the door, or we opened the door, and there's a cop outside with him and his friend. And I look at the officer, I was like, excuse me, but what time is it? He looks, he's like, 1:11. And I just laughed. I'm like, yeah, it was 1:11. And I just laughed like, okay, like, this is just something we're going to have to like talk about and learn lessons from, but I'm not going to get upset about it right now, you know? So,
Yeah, and when I'm saying a lot, but when the parent doesn't get mad, it's sort of like that, you sort of, I guess the kid sort of looks for that response of, oh, he's gonna get mad. I'm waiting for it. Like I want them to get mad, or I want to push their buttons.
because then it
That
gives you a
one-
reason to do it more.
Yeah. Like me and Issa.
Mhm.
When you just annoy someone, so you're trying to get that response out of them. Instead, when you don't give them that response of, anger or whatever, it loses the value of, sneaking out. That doesn't piss them off anymore. So there's no point of me really doing it unless you really wanted to, but
There's no point.
yeah, there's really no point at that point.
Anything else?
Yeah, and I think the sort of, I guess, last thing is that it's interesting because he touched on a couple of things. There's not really punishment in the sense, like we don't call it that. I mean, there's a high level of respect that we all have for one another. So, for example, if I ask Isaac, "Hey, man, we grass has to be mowed," or whatever, like he doesn't process that like that's a chore. It's more like that's my role in the house. That's what I need to do for the family unit as a whole. Just like, not
You taking
anymore.
out the trash.
Yeah, we all have our roles, right? And in a family unit, I just feel like it's so much more easy to do and walk into your role when you understand that it's a role that everyone else has as well. It's just your role is this, my role is this, but we have to have that cohesiveness in order to kind of, just like a company or a business, to make everything work.
Yeah.
And the most important part of that is that he understands that, and that's where the acceptance of the information comes from. Because if he didn't understand that we all kind of do our part and we all have sort of our responsibilities, and that the expectation is to do it, it's not whether you do it or not, it's just you do it, you get it done, and that's it, right? So it's having that understanding with your child of it's a process, it's a part
We're
of a
in this
cohesive
together.
unit.
Yeah.
We're in this together, we're a family, we all have our responsibilities and roles, and it's important that you step into that, because I think that's huge for when they get into relationships and have their careers, moving forward.
Right. Because I feel like a lot of parents just say this has to be done, but they don't explain why, or, you have to do this or else. And then there's punishment, but it's like, but why? And if you explain, hey, it would help me a lot because I've done a lot. And, in order for me to give to you, I need to fill my cup, and it would just be really helpful. You're sparking their compassion and their empathy. You're sparking feelings within them that are coming out of a place of desire from their own self, and not because you told them to. I hated when I was told because I said so, because I said so. And that led me to like a lot of questions. And so I became this parent of like, you know what, I'm not going to control you. You're just going to control yourself, but I'm here, and, I'll come in when I need to, but you're going to learn for yourself. And I think it's worked so far.
Also with the chore thing, sometimes I won't do chores at all, and I'll just be the one, not doing anything for, I guess the family. And as the kid, you sort of see how the parents, they don't, you guys don't get mad at me or punish me for it. It just makes me feel less valuable to the family, I guess.
Right.
So that when you guys are, I see that you guys are doing everything, are tired, it makes me go, oh, well, I haven't been doing anything. Let me step up and I guess, do what I really need to do. Because sometimes when you guys are, I guess, mad or tired, mainly when you worked, sometimes I'd be like, it'd make them happier and take the stress off of them if I do some of these chores that they already had to do, and then, lighten it up a bit. So
That's awesome.
And that's you being conscious also of that. So if you're conscious as a parent, you're going to have a more conscious kid. child, person, little person. And I was going to say one thing. Yeah, we don't really punish you, but I remember always saying, okay, what do you think your punishment should be? And you would be like, well, this or that. And I'm like, really? And we'd talk about it, and you would actually end up punishing yourself. We didn't really, we asked, we had a conversation. Why do you think that this is, the consequence? Or not the consequence, the punishment. I mean, it's not a punishment of our own, but what do you think would be equal to what you just did so that you would learn from that? And that evolved into not really having to punish at all.
Yeah, last thing, swear to God.
He didn't have anything to say about this episode, but now he's got a lot to say.
Well, and I want to give an example, and sorry, bro. I remember the most recent sort of, I guess, blow up, was when Isaac was super frustrated. He lost his temper, got that from me. And just went down our hallway wall, pop, 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 put like 4 holes in the walls. And I'm like, oh my God. But my initial reaction was I wanted to literally fuck him up. I wanted to fuck him up. And my point in sharing this is that as a parent, especially the dads, right? Like there's a moment in time where I knew, because I was aware that reaction is something that he learned from me. Right. He learned that shit from me. Frustration and anger is in all of us, but he learned specifically that from me. So the minute I respond the same way he was taught to respond, all I'm doing is further ingraining that behavior. So I had to chill. I had to stay in the moment. And it was so hard for me to stay present and just simply allow him to continue punching holes. And then he immediately went upstairs. And I remember going upstairs and I'm like, bro, what's going on, man? And like, are you okay? I'm pissed, but are you okay? Is everything cool? And he was like bawling at that point. And it was because I allowed him the space to express that frustration. And he knew I didn't need to say it. I don't need to yell at him for punching holes in the wall. He knew he messed up. He knew that that's not the acceptable way to be. But the point is as a father, if you've made mistakes and you've kind of led your kids down this path and not represented what a true father should be, when that moment comes, man, you've got to step into that power of taking your power back and representing exactly what you want him to represent. And to me, that's a great example of sort of that, right?
Yeah, because the power lies in not getting tempered. The power lies in controlling yourself. That's where the power is.
Transmuting
it and turning it into, calmness. And you have become really good at doing that, actually, at transmuting when you're really upset now.
All right, I lied. I got yeah, I lied. I got one more. And so we were on a family trip, and Joanna was like getting on my man. Like she was, were you PMSing? I think you were.
Yes.
Yeah, she was PMSing hardcore. And Isaac's in the front seat, and I'm outside the car at this point. And I'm looking at him, and he's got his eyes shut, and he's like basically in a meditative state. And I'm like, my man is transmuting it. And she was like, going off. And he was able to basically keep his calm. And again, I pat myself on the back. I'm like, maybe if I hadn't have done that, would he have done that? Like, I don't know, but I don't know if you want to jump in on that.
Well, it's also all that meditation too that helped you do that.
Yeah, like talk a little bit about what like
how you were able to do that. Why did you choose to go into a meditative state to transmute that negative energy into positive? Like you've been practicing that, right?
It's been tested
a lot.
But I guess because in that moment there was other options, but none that would lead to a positive result. So I knew that to get what I wanted, I guess, and to make, the next day a good day and not all awful, because it was near my birthday. So I obviously didn't want it to be
a bad birthday.
Yeah. So I knew what I'd have to do is just transmute it and just let that happen, I guess. And not, get mad back. Otherwise the next day would just been
awful.
Yeah.
We all know when one of us is heated, the other has to be the peaceful one in order for the balance to stay balanced, right?
Agreed.
So I think that pretty much is our talk on conscious parenting. I hope it helps you look at parenting differently and looking at your kids differently, maybe having more conversations with them. And at first it might blow you off, but if you come from a loving place, and talk from like, have a heart to heart, or maybe say, hey, look, I want to just chat, let's talk, and start a heart to heart. They might tell you a lot of things that they haven't told you. And that's one thing that I've realized, is that the more I ask them questions, the more they talk about things they have in their mind. They're a whole world inside they're in a whole nother life of thoughts, of
Dreams.
everything. And it's like,
fears.
we are their person. We are their person to help shape and mold them and help them and guide them through this. And I don't think as a society that we're doing that enough. So I hope that this can cause a ripple effect, right? And start making some changes.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you.
Cool.
Peace out. This was episode 11. We will see you next week on episode 12, Real Talk. Peace.